there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, clearly on vacation, and today we have from Post Malone, F-1 Trillion. Okay, the problem with reviewing this album, and indeed discussing Post Malone in 2024, is that on some level, it's a lot more interesting to discuss the career and cultural significance than the music itself. And it should be no surprise to anyone that Post Malone has finally made this country album. He's been open about wanting to do this for years now, but the swerve has prompted a lot of snark online, calling him a culture vulture once again for using hip-hop to get on and then finally make the music that he really wants. And hell, I myself have been on board that train before with Post Malone, going back nearly a decade. Go dig out my old review of Stoney if you want more of that context. But I also think the context has gotten a bit blurrier with time. Post Malone's genre-agnostic approach, going back to Hollywood's Bleeding in 2019, has placed him a little more deeply in a pop context overall, which has translated to his most lasting singles, and at least to me, his best music. I still hold that his 2023 album Austin is probably his best, and it's not because of any hip-hop textures or influence. Moreover, the past couple of years I've seen a lot of rappers, especially in the mainstream, getting a lot more comfortable cribbing from Nashville and Music Row to jumpstart their own crossover success in a fascinating reversal/reclamation project. Although a lot more of that is felt more cynical in order to pick up one of the more stable paychecks that's left in the music industry. And that's to say nothing of Post Malone's label career. Due to a bunch of behind-the-scenes drama that I don't think a lot of folks know about, both 12 Karat Toothache and Austin technically underperformed. So if Mercury Republic was going to get their money's worth out of Post Malone wanting to make a country album, by every higher power, even if country is in right now, this needs to sell like gangbusters. So put every Music Row heavy hitter on the project, call in every favor, and pump the radio like nobody's business. So it becomes a little tough to gauge how this album functions beyond a collection of radio-ready collabs pushed through the Post Malone filter. By necessity, the album feels like a Nashville grab bag rather than carrying any sort of thematic or lyrical cohesion, probably closer to one of Hardy's Hicks tape series, but it actually has more of a budget for production, leaning a lot closer to the accessible neo-traditional sounds that are popular right now compared to the 2010s bro country, which tends to be way more synthetic, especially in the percussion and groove. You're gonna see a lot of folks who should frankly know better call this bro country, and honestly, the description's just wrong. It's off in production, songwriting structure, even content. And it's also underscored by Post Malone's canny, melodic songwriting instincts. The guy can structure a hook, especially a traditional country one. And really, how much this album will work for you will be dependent on how much you like mainstream Nashville radio country. If the lack of authenticity turns your stomach, even with plenty of fiddle and pedal steel and certain respectable guests and co-writes, this is not going to change your mind. And I can't always say it's even executed well because the smeared over vocal blend and blocky, slightly blown out percussion as the Post Malone hallmark can be a really dicey fit for that sound, certainly a unique one. I mentioned this in Billboard Breakdown with Blake Shelton on Pour Me a Drink. Even if that song has kind of grown on me, I like dumping on the Dallas Cowboys, especially when they lose. And Tim McGraw's vocal mixing on the opener, that's been clunky for years now. But then you have Dolly Parton being the good sport for the Have the Heart when her vocal mix sounds terrible. And on the topic of shockingly bad collaborations, Chris Stapleton just utterly fumbled California Sober. That song is a mess. No, the deeper issue might come in song construction. A lot of these tracks have one good lyrical flip or idea that they then try to milk for either simple light comedy or a slightly sadder moment. It's utterly two-dimensional and straight from the Music Row songwriting mill, and I'm kind of two minds on this. On the one hand, Post Malone actually did put in the work to immerse himself in the scenes. He made connections, he's been the team player, and he has writing credits on all these songs. And the album doesn't feel as cynical in that system as a result. I've heard a lot of folks call this Post Malone making the Kid Rock moment with the country pivot, and I'm sorry, that's not right. Especially as I think Post Malone is going to keep on genre hopping and experimenting after this. Certainly not writing himself into jingoistic, badly produced mush in the corner. Post Malone, quite frankly, has more to say and more to do. And in some collaborations, I actually think the results have some charm in that Music Row system. Both the Luke Combs collabs are good. Brad Paisley and Post have some really good chemistry on Goes Without Saying. I was shocked how much the 90s charm of Devil I've Been with ERNEST actually worked for me. And Nosedive, it's a ballad with Lainey Wilson that works that plane metaphor, and quite frankly has me wishing that Post Malone bothered to push any of his ballads as a proper single. Yes, I'm still bitter about Wasting Angels, can you tell? Now on the flip side, if you want to make the, in my opinion, justified argument that these songs could have been performed by anybody, and that Post Malone does not really add enough of his unique flair or lyrical edge, or always make best use of his guest stars, looking straight at the Sierra Ferrell and Billy Strings collabs as they're basically stuck as backing singers on the otherwise solid Never Love You Again and the hilarious Mexico. But hey, that's at least preferable to the awkward and clunky posturing of Hide My Gun with Hardy. Well, yeah, at least on the main album proper, those are not precisely wrong criticisms. And given that Post Malone albums can fall into the stream trolling territory, especially given the long bed deluxe edition of this album, tighter sequencing would probably help the best moments shine a little better. But once you get to the very obvious daddy-daughter wedding dance song that's way too clingy with Yours, and frankly it's utterly wild that Post Malone of all people wrote one of those, and that it's even somewhat credible in that lane, the long bed deluxe, it's very clearly what Post Malone was targeting as more of his personal country project that might be a little bit less accessible, and yet the more organic neo-traditional swagger's got some meat to it. From the ragged barroom bleakness of Dead at the Honkytonk to slaying some of his own inner alcoholic demons on the excellent Kill the Man. From the jaunty hookup of Hey Mercedes that quite frankly would have worked on mainstream country radio, to the Texas flair of Go to Hell. From the western swing of Who Needs You to the shockingly good divorce song Two Hearts with phenomenal fiddle and mandolin. There's real quality here. Even if you don't like Post Malone and you like country, it's there. But overall, I think F-1 Trillion's kind of a weird album to evaluate, especially considering the deluxe issue on side of it. Mostly because I can hear every industry machination, for better and for worse. For a compromised project, the raw fundamentals are way better than they have any right to be, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of folks who have scorned Music Row, Nashville country, maybe even country as a whole genre, and they might see this Post Malone album as an entry point, and as such, it's pretty good for that. But it is still compromised, and I do not think it falls in line with his best work. Even by Nashville country standards, I think this could have been more distinctive. I mean, it's not remotely close to the best country that's come out this year, especially out of Texas or the indie scene. But if this is indeed the only country album you will hear in 2024, and for some audiences, especially those who have been more reticent to approach the genre, it's probably true, it's still good. So yeah, give it a shot. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yes, I know this is a bit of an awkward setup in terms I'm on vacation. It happens. Next couple of videos are going to be filmed in this sort of structure anyway. Probably will be shorter, but again, when you got a 27-song album in total between this and the long bed edition, I kind of want to have a little bit more to say on this. It's probably going to be a devil to edit on the road anyway, but that's my issue, not yours. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, well, wait until I get back home and then I'll be all ears. Beyond that, if you want to help support the channel, beyond buying some merch, the link to my Patreon is right over there. We're still trying to figure things out over there. But again, if you want to help support the channel, get albums on my schedule, maybe even help just yell at me on my Discord, the option is available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.